Hi, welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings from this perspective, from my boat, yeah, boating hat. Anyway, yeah, wrong camera, but it doesn't really matter. So I did do a video during the week on economics, basically inflation, the main subject, but it's really just about debt and the eventual disaster that it spells for those who never pay them back. And we have no ability to pay our debts, and our debts are to actual people, and the actual people don't get paid, blah blah blah. You know, there's all repercussions for all of that stuff. Anyway, so the subject is sort of the subject of what you should talk about or how you should talk about it, and two kinds of things. You know, there's people who get mad because you're depressing, yeah, or you're interfering in their function some way by presenting them with these facts that they really don't want to pay any attention to, and so which I think they should kind of know is sort of a lame argument. You know, that you don't blame the messenger, all that kind of stuff. If you don't like the message, you know, those are basic principles. And the other part of it is pointing out that they're all basic principles. They're all of this whole thing of functionality and doing logic is about understanding basic principles. And so that gets to another argument that comes up where people rag about the fact that I do physics videos. And this somehow annoys them, either because they think my physics is wrong, which, you know, no chance of that, or they think it's just some sort of distraction that I should be emphasizing and, you know, devoting all of my energy to the end argument that, yeah, the matrix is fundamentally broken, and, you know, we shouldn't be compromising with either the machine side of ourselves or the wooey, daydreaming, I'm winning, you know, retard side of ourselves. That both are delusional in terms of thinking there's a playable game. That there is any kernel, sort of a computer term, of value in terms of something worthy of preservation, something that can actually do something that would be actually positive rather than just cleaning up your own messes kind of thing, preventing errors that should have never existed in the first place, satisfying needs that don't need to exist. So that's much of this whole philosophy, is a statement like that. The argument that all the needs that we have don't need to exist, that if they never existed there wouldn't really be any discernible or findable or viewable. You know, you could get out your little magnifiers and look for the, you know, and you couldn't find it. You couldn't find, oh, where's the tragedy, you know. And that also gets to arguments that are, you know, these bolder arguments where, you know, people want to profile me as some Hitler-esque blah blah blah, you know, just because, yeah, it's okay, I don't believe every story ever told about history, especially historical facts we all know have been colored by the people who get to write the history. You know, the dead people, the raped and pillaged, don't get to say, no, it was rape and pillage, it was not some sort of honorable, our sacred fortunes invested in all. They weren't investing any of that. They were just, you know, they hired a bunch of mercenaries, for fuck's sake. You know, the truth, you know. So that doesn't get into the history book, because the winners get to write the narrative, you know, and the losers are stuck, you know, being dead and raped and all that stuff, and it's, you know, quite tragic. But that gets to the point of the whole, you know, first people have to have a meager amount of integrity before they can even do anything like reasoning, because reasoning requires you to, you know, not have your biases. You can't you have to discipline yourself against, you know, your subjective narrative leaking into the bigger, better story you're trying to tell. You know, it's just, you could sort of see it, that we'd all kind of tend, you know, to pick the heroes of the story, and each of us might pick different people as the heroes, you know, and then we write the story, you know, where they're so much bigger in the story and they're important, and, you know, and so prejudice is hard to avoid, and bias, and but that comes back to basic principles. So, you know, you have to have these, and that's sort of why the physics argument, in my opinion, is important. Not only just for the sake of the fact that it is illustrating. I mean, I didn't think this is what would be revealed in having the conversation is that religion is long from dead. Okay, you know, you think there's these atheists out there. They're not really atheists. They're not really science lovers. They're not really interested in the truth. They're not really fighting religion for the right reasons. They just don't like the stupid, silly, you know, dress-wearing God, and they just want to make a different God in their image, you know, in the image of the nerd, the computer geek. You know, they want a God that has an iPhone and tweets and all of that crap. But, you know, it really isn't. They don't get the whole idea that we're just trapped in a story-making machine, and, you know, most of the stories are, all of the stories are just silly. You know, they really don't go anywhere, and it's, you know, just head banging. You know, you're not getting anywhere. It's all retarded behavior, and so that's sort of the argument, is that this intelligence thing has to rise out of, has to percolate through this muck, and somehow, okay, separate itself from the muck, and then show the muck how to reform itself and rise from its position. See, because the intelligent can't really fix the muck, okay? They can only help the muck. You know, they can only help the disabled. They can't cure their diseases. They can't cure their mental disabilities. They can't cure what they've missed. But what they can do is provide ladders. Okay, you could argue. So the intelligence of the world can teach the poor and the failures, the expensive, the high maintenance, all this kind of stuff, how not to be eating their own children and doing all kinds of behavior that's really stupid. But they're not doing that because they're still in the muck. They're still in these notions of, you know, unicorn bliss and bullshit. They're still writing stories. Yeah. And we already know, please don't write another Star Wars story. You know, just please kill it, because they're getting way too stupid. You know, just way too, I mean, fuck it. I mean, they already killed everybody, right? So it doesn't matter. But they can all come back as ghosts, right? So fuck that. That doesn't work either. Anyway, it's over. Yeah, just, you know, you know, it all goes bad, and just like our lives, that's sort of the statement. It all, like, even if it's bad now, it just goes worse then, you know, but that's all. There is just downhill from here, kind of thing. And you know, it all said, you know, it is irritating how brains work, right? Because the Tiger Woods thing just popped into my head. You know, this week he had his car accident, and you know, everybody was just all this, what a hero, you know, and you know, this is really, he really has contempt for the rest of the world, right? You do realize that, right? I mean, you don't accidentally be in the wrong lane of traffic this many times in your life, okay, by accident. You know, it's because you really do have to have a, who gives a shit? You know, I wipe out a family going to McDonald's, I don't give a fuck. I mean, you really do have to have a certain kind of contempt when you don't learn anything from your mistakes. I mean, you know, clearly, not the right frame of mind to be in the hero category, I don't think. But then you know, this is another example of where you got to be careful of that prejudice thing, because, you know, I never liked Tiger Woods, never just doesn't, there's nothing charming about him. The whole spitting, he did a lot of things that were just like, golf doesn't need this. I don't need high definition spitting. That's eek. Anyway, there's a lot of reasons. So maybe it's just, I'm not cutting him enough of 4 million breaks. I just find the whole thing cynical and putrid. This whole media bullshit. He pet his kid on the head a couple of times, and now he's the greatest father in the world. I mean, it's the whole Cosby thing, right? I mean, he was actually nominated World Hero Father of the Year thing or something, like the world's greatest father, and it really wasn't. That was just horse shit. So anyway, I'm just sick of blah 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 media. Fuck them. Fuck all the bullshit. So it's another thing just popped in my head as something. Oh yeah, there was that that little message I got from YouTube telling me another one of my videos has been taken down. They didn't give me a strike this time, so at least I wonder why. I wonder why they just through their own discretion, just decide, oh well, this time we won't penalize you for it. But this time, another a video, vaguely on the Holocaust in terms of just arguing that, what's this panic? All right, I don't understand the panic that is generated if someone just questions a few details, right? They go through the whole thing of explaining how it was horrible to, I can't even call it racism. I don't know what you would call it. I mean, so it's kind of ironic that it's both against the religion, against the race, against anything that has any element of any taint at all. I don't even, you can't even figure out what they're against. And it's so invisible in a sense. I mean, the idea of being Jewish, let's just say. I mean, anybody could be half Jewish. Anybody could be 3/4 Jewish. I think somebody could be 90% Jewish. And it's not something you could detect unless they said, yeah, I'm Jewish. Unless they're wearing the hat and the curls and the, unless they're broadcasting it. But anyway, the idea of that racism was terrible. Just insidiously awful, stupid idea. That somehow this works as a way of navigating the world. That somehow you can fix problems in the world by a sledgehammer. So that's built by caveman. Built by somebody way too stupid. And then the segregation, the disemployment, the whole, and then the work them to death, kill them in any way possible, all of that. So you can go through this whole thing of explaining how this is just one of these huge, gigantic, never should have happened in the 1900s kind of thing. We should have been way past, this kind of stupid behavior. You can do all that and have a conversation about that, but you're still some kind of evil person because you haven't accepted every piece of their story. Every element of their narrative must be bowed to, and it must be bowed to in the way they want it. So in my opinion, they're bowing to the rear end of the elephant. They really are that silly. I mean, they think the anus and the tail are the most important part, and they don't get that the brain is at the other side, and all the stuff that really matters is on the other side of the elephant. And it's not about Jews. It's about anybody who can be disenfranchised based on these silly profiling generalizations and imprisoned in a sense, and abused and raped, marginalized for these insipidly stupid reasons. So that's looking at the elephant the way they should be. That should be their Holocaust, is whenever that happens, and yet it's not, And I think that's critiquable. But apparently you can't critique it. I don't know, maybe this video is going to get taken down because you can't dare talk about it, right? Because there's these privileged classes now that are, the whole cancel culture. Well, guess what, liberals? You've asked for it overtly. I mean, everything about you seems to be running away from any kind of contest. You don't want to win arguments, you just want to cancel the arguments. And that's pathetic. Sorry. If you're afraid of the argument, then you're maybe on the wrong team somehow. Maybe you don't have quite as good an answer to the problem as you think you do, and maybe the criticism, although excessive and silly, might have a kernel of truth to it if you have to run from it. And so, yeah, this is just, you're just saying, this is just such bullshit. I mean, on neither side, I'm having an argument with Remy, back in the old days. So it's kind of, it's too bad it's a Remy video, and I'm doing some yelling in it, so, obviously that's not, it's not pleasant, I suppose, to watch. But they're real arguments, and the argument wasn't no one was defending Nazis, no one was defending bigots, no one was on either side. I mean, the argument wasn't about any of the important subjects. It really wasn't. It was just, the argument was about what's the important value, what side of the elephant is the one you should be petting, so to speak. Yeah. Well, anyway. So that was just another one of those little irritants that pop up. Just re-emphasize that we're not going, neither team here is going to take us. It's going to sail the boat in the right direction. The Democratic Party doesn't have a clue what they're doing. I would say they're better motivated, but they have no sense of direction. They don't even know what wind is. They have no way to navigate in any kind of rational way. And the other team is just evil. I mean, they're just selfish, nihilist cunts, and, I've drowned them all. Fuck, So, but it's still, there's nothing to root for here, right? Rooting for chaos, sail around in circles, poo in the water people, and, these, the other just evil, greedy scoundrels. Yeah, well, nothing to root let nuke them both. Anyway, so my defense of the physics isn't for just principle reasons. I have to admit, some of it is because I just like it. I find it very intriguing as a puzzle-solving thing, and I'm a little bit addicted to it, like a video game. So I'll admit, some of it is a self-indulgence. I talk about physics because the lines are much straighter. It's a much clearer argument to make. I don't have to get into any arguments about perception and storytelling and whether or not we're robots, and I don't have to get into those more difficult subjective arguments about how much it matters that you're torturing somebody, or subtleties like, the fact that, my mother loved riding roller coasters. She was still riding them at 90 years old. I hated them. I just, no. I went on a little one once. It wasn't so bad, but I saw no value in the experience at all. Just zero value. Noisy, silly, stupid. I could feel my brain moving around in my skull. And what the hell do I want to do that for? I know brains are kind of important. You shouldn't be jiggling them around. That would be dumb. So yeah, I got nothing out of the experience. And so, you have to have this more subtle argument explaining how this isn't about what you like to do. It's about whether or not you can force other people to do it, and whether that makes any sense. Whether you should understand that you shouldn't even want to do that. You shouldn't want somebody to have to pay a price for you to have what you enjoy doing. Everything you enjoy doing shouldn't be made out of somebody else's slavery. The simple argument. You shouldn't be plantation livers. So that's but it's a subtler argument to make. Where the physics, it's all about straight lines and adding pieces together, and being the obvious things where pieces are completely, it's like you're mixing puzzle pieces with dominoes. The domino doesn't fit in a puzzle. It's no chance. It's a part of the puzzle. So anyway, and then the other part, there's another reason why I see value in it, in the sense that I had this perception that this intelligent argument regarding the simple mechanics of the physical universe, intelligent people could be reasoned with, and that I could actually gain some ground, and through that gain exposure. And now I would become somebody to reckon with. I would be on CNN, and I would get my opportunity to make my arguments. And so I see value in it still, just because I think I should be able to reason with people who do have college educations easier than it is to reason with the people who don't. I should be able to reason with people who have some sense that science is a good thing, that evidence and all of that stuff is important, and you have to be careful. I mean, the people who understand what the scientific principles should be, that they just don't understand that current science doesn't have anything to do with those principles. They're just writing silly stories, okay, in a little ivory tower, okay, where they all tell you what you should believe, based on the thinnest of evidence. So anyway, so I see value in it. I'm sorry if you don't see value in it. That's okay. You can say I'm not optimizing my time here on Earth. I'm not doing all I could do. I might say those are fair criticisms, because I do spend some time in distractions. I have to say that, generally speaking, when I look at my life, I'm saying, boy, I'm pretty well devoted. I mean, I don't do any of the things I used to do. Now, some of them I can't do. I can't go wandering through the woods and, looking under rocks and doing the things I used to enjoy, just because there's nowhere to do it here. And, I'm less interested, let's just say, in projects, so, it just doesn't appeal to me. Now, I have done some, so, I mean, it seems like I'm going to spend some of my time doing that, fixing the living environment, and whatnot. So, I mean, I accept your critiques, but, your criticism, they're you're entitled to your opinion. I'm just saying I really have thought about it. I mean, I do think about how to, that I don't want to be distracted from, and I don't want to be investing in activities that are not conducive to the ends I wish to achieve. But I also know that I have already done something, okay? And I'm not saying I should just sit there and say, there, I did my part, I'm done, I don't have to do any more work. I'm just saying that, yes, I really, my my existence has been rather meager, and in the sense of enjoying it. I have worked at this, and it is not an easy or fun thing, dealing with all the crap that comes with it. But whatever. Go ahead. Go ahead and spiel your little spiels at me, criticizing my function. I can take it. I'll say that much. And the fact is, I do think about these things, and I think about, like I said, all of it. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot to, take account for. For example, this is the camera. I really don't like talking into this camera. Anyway, just because it does come up where people have seen a degrade in their life, interacting with my channel, so to speak. It hasn't done their endeavor to persevere engine much good. That it has de-invested them in things that they needed to see function in the struggle and all that kind of stuff. And like I said, I lament that, but I don't think there's any way I can do this where I can pre-warn you. I mean, if I say something like, "Don't watch this video," right? I mean, that's clickbait, isn't it? I mean, if you have some marginal grip on your existence, You know, if you're barely hanging on, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be watching my videos. And they're really not meant for people who already can sort of get it, or pretty close to the, you know, falling off the edge of the cliff and realizing, why are we doing this over and over again? You know, I mean, the people who can see the dark, you know, versus see the light, you know, they can see where they're headed. You know, yeah, I don't really need to convince them, because if I convince the rest, they'll go along really easy. They'll be easy to persuade in the end. You know, they'll be the simple, easy ones to persuade, where the bulk of the work now has to be on the people that are the hardest cases, so to speak. Hard case. You say hard case, and you say, oh, fake Sagan. That's a hard case, right? I mean, that's, whoa. Brains that can go that sideways, you know, that are, you know, that can swing in those, you know, completely bizarre directions. You know, the switch from, you know, whatever, raised Catholic to atheist to back to some kind of fundamentalist religion. Yeah, that's a hard case of how do you communicate with a brain that can flip the world that much upside down, you know, that can see things from inside their ass. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's just you can't even describe how the elemental pieces must be so unclear and foggy. It's like attaching a Lego to, you know, like plugging the Lego right into your iPad or something. It just doesn't make any sense. There's no Lego connector. I mean, you can't put that. You can't put that plug in that hole. I mean, it just doesn't work. And yet they somehow did it, or are doing it. All right. So maybe I'll take a little pause, and then maybe we'll just go into the. So the other criticism here is that I'm not doing enough of a syllogy here. So somehow I'm not connecting A to B to C to D, and I'm saying like every one of my videos is sort of devoted to that process. And certainly on the subject of evilism, I've certainly made these arguments about us being robots, you know, the nature of existence in terms of we're a byproduct of evolution, the physics of our reality, and I'm saying the story is in the physics. It's really not. You can't find it somewhere else. There is no metaphysics. Okay, there's just the physical process that's percolating not only our capacity to be intelligent, but the intelligence itself is also made out of that physics, out of that logic. You know, those facts derived. And I've certainly highlighted and explained why I see certain facts as, you know, must have. Like, if you really don't have them, yes, you might be a vegetarian, but you're not going to be one, you know, in the real vegetarian war. If there's a vegetarian war, you're not going to be in it. You're not going to be shooting in the right direction. That kind of thing. I mean, there are fundamental premises that are just critical to getting reality right. You're not going to get reality right. You have no hope. It's clear that it's not. You know, these are synthetic, you know, fake puzzle pieces. This is fake gasoline. This is fake you know, you drew a tire on a piece of paper and tried to drive your car on it. You can't do that. And that's what most of the world is running on, is a bunch of fake things that they've placed in them in their understanding of the mechanism, and they won't work. They have no hope of working in the long term. Kind of like the video I did, in the sense of talking about certain, you know, once you've done these certain things, you've committed to failure. I mean, you've basically put all the ingredients in, and you know, it's just going to be about baking time. Yeah, I mean, you can bake it for 2 hours, you can bake it for 20 hours, but the fact is when you open the oven, you're not going to have a cake. Okay, so you have no hope of having something edible and that has any food value, because you have all the wrong ingredients in there. Lots of ways to analogize it. No reasonable prospect of you are on the road to success, and that can be spelled out. And I think it can be illustrated. It can be, I'll attempt maybe to draw some of it. But it's just, in a sense, another version of, like I said, what I've done. I mean, years ago, I drew a little flow chart, you know, life in the middle, and then the words that are all relevant. And so I guess I'll start with something like that and just explain that you just run into these key words right away. I mean, as soon as you start describing reality, you're going to get to the key words right away. We're all robots. The stories we're telling are just regurgitations of other stories. Okay, it's all Shakespeare just reformulized. You know, all you're doing is, you know, like in physics, you're just moving the characters around, you know, playing games that somehow this formula is different than that formula when now it's exactly the same formula. You just move the pieces around. But it has the same pieces in it. And those pieces define the reality. And they don't give you much room for all of these daydreams that people live for. Anyway, so that's what I'll do shortly. Alright, should be back. I believe so anyway. Oh, should turn the light on. Well, that's enough, I think. We'll get by. So, this should work. Probably, maybe. Let's see, I should go that way a little bit more, right? Oh no, that's not, yeah, that's probably just fine. And you should have left it where it was. Okay. Anyway, so we have life. So I will draw the word, and that will probably be the only word I'll draw. The rest will just be symbols. But anyway, so that's what we're focused on, because we think that's the whole story. But the truth is, in terms of the universe's function, that's just one element, you know, one thing that happens because of something called evolution. So there's this evolution idea that chemistry creates, and obviously that's caused by physics down here, you know, that causes the chemistry that leads to the evolution that has this one thing it does. You know, it's just one of the things that it does is evolution creates, let's just say, life that has feelings. Okay, the capacity to feel is one tool, okay, that evolution creates. So you could argue that tool would have to be here. So I'll write that one because it's an easy word. So evolution makes tools. Okay, and the life we're thinking about has to do with the really important bubbles like thinking. Okay. Oh dear, I don't really want to get into writing on boards because that's just kind of silly. You know, and feeling. Okay, so we'll put feel over here. All right, and so, so far, okay, we got enough. We got a little bit of a drawing here. We got a story to tell, a narrative. Okay, you can't see the P down here, but that's physics. It leads to chemistry. Okay, where, you know, the universe is, we can see in the big universe that what we're doing is really different than what the universe is doing, right? There's no evidence the universe is doing anything terribly sophisticated. It's just a bunch of, you know, meteors flying around, really. And some of them we call planets and suns, but it's all just rocks. A collection of rocks. And so it's the chemistry, you know, that you can have in the right temperature ranges. You'll have this chemistry, and the chemistry can do this, create a DNA molecule. So I guess that's what the real thing would be, DNA. Okay, and that really just has to do with, you know, you can't have evolution until you have the DNA. So it's right in here that you create this molecule that's capable of, you know, making errors in its design, and therefore changing the function of a machine that goes out into the world and does this living and dying thing over and over and over again. So it's always alive in a sense, you know, the machine, but it's always updating its version number. You know, it's a constant version. So we're on version 1 billion, whatever, you know, billions of years of, well, hundreds of millions of years for that's the version number of a chemical, you know, and that's all it really is. That builds the machine, and the machine is what we are, and the machines are just tool equipped. And so the crocodile, you know, the tools are simple, strong jaws, sharp teeth, you know, a digestive system that can eat anything. You know, they don't catch colds and stuff. You know, they're really well made machine in the sense that it gets the job done, and that's why it's been around so long. Where we're kind of a fancy little weird eccentric, you know, tool machine, you know, and it really hasn't been tested yet. It hasn't been around very long. You know, and we're sort of, you know, there's lots of arguments being made that, you know, we're clearly feeble and we won't survive the future, and the planet will go back to being animals. You know, I mean, just the simpler devices that don't contemplate their place in the universe. They aren't going to contemplate the stars and the planets and think about Mars or grow. You know, they won't be thinking about any of that horse shit, looking for anything out there. They'll be stuck trying to just find meals here on Earth. You know, they'll spend their life thinking their great adventure is, I found a candy bar. You know, and that's it. There's not going to be any other story. Right, and so so you're just going through a mechanical process all the way up until this point. Then you can say something weird happens. The feeling thing, okay, does happen in our brain. It's just something our brain synthesizes, the sensation. But the weird thing is, it's a tool, okay. And what's it supposed to create? It's supposed to create some notion of value. Okay, so that's when the game really got weird. Okay, so thinking, you can understand that. That's just putting together the fact that, oh yeah, every time I hit a tree, I bang off of it. And that's just learning how the physics works, how the mechanics work. That's just identifying similarities, you know. Lion, tiger. Well, who cares? They're both going to eat me. You know, crocodile versus alligator. Oh, whatever. Who cares? But that's what thinking can do. Thinking can make distinctions and recognize similarities and recognize when it matters, when it doesn't matter. But feelings, ooh, mush. And again, they're built by this DNA molecule, so they haven't, you know, on the natural side, on the physiological side, this is running what you feel. And then you have this other side where your thinking has led to a culture. Yeah, see, there's not enough, you can't do all these words, so we'll just put a big C for culture. And so the culture and your thinking process is now moderating, okay, is able to put some influence into this native function and create connections. So you can think about stealing candy at the store and then think about the electric chair. And so now you can put different things together and you can diminish your feeling, your hunger for the candy, by associating it with the electric chair and being eaten by maggots. Oh yeah, I don't want to do that. So yeah, I'll go find something else to do. So you can use thinking to moderate what you're feeling to some extent. Now it's not, you know, this is still the paved road. You know, your biology is the paved road, and all your thinking can do is it can create some pathways, some gravel, some little turns you can make off that paved road. You can moderate the path you have to take in life, or what you have to feel, what you have to experience. So you can moderate your experiences a little bit. But again, the whole point of the feeling was to value, okay, was to make things so your system, your program, would know what it wants, what its objective is. You know, where are we going? You know, should we fly towards the light, or should we fly away from the light? Which one is going to get us somewhere? And that's what the mechanism was for, is to reward and punish, you could argue. So, you know, that'd be another important concept. Reward and punish is the whole reason we feel. Is through reward and punish, you can do this thinking thing and you can learn, okay? And so, I don't know, learn we could put over here. So, you know, but these are just the concepts. That's what we're made out of. Now, I could fit in here somewhere that you always have to remember it is a DNA molecule, and DNA makes robots, okay? It doesn't make something else. It makes robots, a programmed robot. And that's what you start with, is your programming. And just like a computer, You know, you can add a bunch of software, and then the software can make documents and do this and do that, and have, you know, it can file things, and it can what's the word for store? It can store a whole bunch of documents. It can store knowledge. That's what your brain is doing all the time, is storing experiences, you know, so you can learn from them, so you can enhance your function. See, this is part of the DNA's plan, that you would moderate your feelings through this mechanism of thinking. That's why you think, is because, not because it's really cool to be smart. No, it's because being smart means you will maximize this learning process. And you know, and so it's given us that ability to apply these functions to any environment and find a solution. So just like a computer, you could put a computer in a maze and the computer will figure out how to get out of the maze. We're doing the same thing, but we're just robots. We can only do it out of the information that's available. The ideas have to first be around, and we have to mix the ingredients of those ideas, put them together and say, well, I have a class called alligator, or crocodile, or reptile. Yeah, reptile's too vague, so let me narrow it to lizard, you know, and then I start putting everything in the lizard category and recognizing that maybe I need a subspecies. You know, it's just this classification thing. So that would be another good word, classification. That's what our brain does, is it classifies everything. Now the danger of that is that we end up doing this whole black-white thing or some other silly classification that just isn't going to be any good. To recognize those classifications as meaning anything of substance. Now they can mean something to your feelings, okay? You don't like short people. Some kind, you know, you have a feeling about short people. There's nothing wrong with having the feeling. The problem is if you say the feeling is a fact, that it's telling me the truth. What I feel is telling me the truth. That's when you got to be careful, because that's a real danger to your intelligence. That is what you've acquired as learning. You really have to learn that this isn't necessarily going to tell you the truth. When it says to you, ooh, hot chick, maybe she's not hot. Okay, she's only hot to you. You're having a feeling based on subjective horseshit, and it could be, you know, for somebody else a completely different arrangement of you know, whatever, brains and boobs, that you know, clicks the switches and says hot, you know, rather than not. So you got to know that that's just your personal little subjective story, and in all the other stories something else is hot and something else is not, and all of that. So those are just tools in terms of recognizing how to be smart. So that's what I would argue, is that there are people who have learned some notions of these things, and yet they don't seem to be, you know, there's no evidence that they've allowed that to actually be part of the logical stream. That they have learned a lesson in the sense they know it as a fact, but they'll never apply it to themselves. They only apply it to other people. You know, other people shouldn't be bigots, but it's okay if I am one. You know, it's okay if I try to engineer the world to look the way I want it to look, but it's not okay for anybody else to do it. God damn it, that's for certain. And that's just ignorant, right? I mean, that's just, whoa, you didn't learn anything, you know, reasonable. You haven't put the facts together correct at all. You're not getting, you know, how the game really works. So, you know, but that's the objective, is in terms of, I can't really give you the narrative, right? I can't give you the reasoning by just saying one word. I can't just say DNA. I can't just say tool making. I can't just say life. I can't just say feeling. You can't just tell the story in any kind of honest way without really understanding that this is what the pieces are. You know, you get, maybe you'll end up with a dozen words that are important, maybe 15 words that will end up being important, and they are important to telling the story. The characters all have a contribution to make to the story, and you really can't tell it as a, you know, as a one-man show. You know, a one-word show won't really be able to do the Shakespeare. I mean, you have to have the Romeo and the Juliet, and then you have to have the, you know, families, and you have to have the brother-in-law, and, you know, if you don't have enough characters, you just can't tell the story. And these are the characters that will tell the story of why a sensible, intelligent person should know this is making value. Feelings are making value. They synthesized it. Nature, there was no value in the universe until nature made a value detector. Okay, when it made the value detector, it made a fake value for it to be detecting. That's the funny part of it, right? It made a value detector. Let's make a detector for value in the universe, and the detector is actually seeing value, or it really, it's seeing value. That's the irony, right? Like the F-list is actually using its value detector to detect the value of having a value detector. The only value is having a value detector. The only things that matter in the universe are the value detectors. There are no values. There's just value detectors. And they are very important because they can feel very, very bad because they're detecting the bad value. They're when they when they experience the negative sensation, the negative feeling, they've experienced negative value for the first time in the universe, so to speak. It didn't exist until they created it. The existence of the value detector created the existence of value. See, that's a thinking thing. You have to think about it, but that's part of the process, and this is so essential. I would argue that if you're valuing something other than value detectors in the universe, you've missed it. If you think the little sentient creatures, if you don't understand that the things with brains that are having experiences of feeling good and bad, sensations, if you don't understand that that's the stuff, if you think gold has value, then you got it wrong. If you think, all this other crap has value, no, the only thing that matters is what are the feeling things feeling. That's where all the value is. Their welfare, the welfare of the robots detecting value. That's where all the value is. And there is nothing in the rest of it. There is nothing in even the story of its existence. The function that created it doesn't have any value. And clearly the simple answer is, don't make value detectors and then you won't have a value problem. You won't have waste. You won't have tragedy. You won't have failure. You won't have any of those things if you stop making value detectors. That solves the universe's illness of wasted pain and suffering. It cures the disease. Just stop making detectors. And all this other crap can keep happening. The robots didn't mean anything. The robots building their little castles, doing all their little crap, didn't mean anything until they acquired that brain that could feel. That's when it all went south. Yeah. All right. I'll pause and see what else there is to say in terms of, like I said, the drawing does have to go, you have to go through it in pieces. And that's what I've done in past videos. I mean, I went through these words, talked about each one. But you can't just say life sucks and say, I'm done making the argument. Yes, that's not good enough. You can't just say life's unfair. That's not good enough. Deserve has nothing to do with it. I mean, that's a good phrase, frankly. Okay, a damn good phrase. Because most people doing even a marginal amount of thinking should know that deserve is a good thing. People getting what they deserve, yeah, that's good. And we don't have a world where that happens. That doesn't happen. That happens a very tiny percentage of the time. And so that's good reason to be kind of, oh, this isn't working very well, because deserve doesn't have anything to do with it. That's failure. So, but anyway, so you can spend a day, I can spend a week on any one of these concepts and explaining how deep the rabbit hole goes, so to speak, how much there really is to say about how it is a controlling feature and how it doesn't have any integrity, and that the universe doesn't have a brain. So what are the odds it comes up with a DNA that's a good thing? No, the odds are it comes up with ideas that aren't good things. Dumb things don't invent good things. They make a lot of mistakes by percentage to good ideas. And life just wasn't a good idea. A smart thing would have great trepidation in risking torture. They, you know, smart things know torture, not a good thing. If that's going to be the consequence of what I'm doing, I got to be damn sure I'm going to create something of enough value. That is, I'm going to prevent enough torture in the world to justify the torture I'm causing. That would be the logical imperative. And clearly, you're not preventing torture, okay, by making silly storytelling robots that all think they're on some grand adventure. I'm winning, I'm winning. Any day now. I'm going to win big. Yeah. No, you're not. Anyway, so I'll be back. All right, should be back. All right, so I'm finishing up. So there is this battlefield of ideas. That's sort of what I've been engaged in, is fighting from a perspective on that field, you know, from an angle, however you want to look at it. Clearly on a side, okay, the side that has contempt for the conventional notions, the ones the human race have been thumping along, following, the wagons they've been on. I want to shoot those bandwagons. I want to blow them up. But the thing is, though, is anybody who's intelligent, if you're going to get into this kind of business, you want to make sure you're on the right side, right? I mean, before you pick up the gun and start shooting shit, metaphorically, you really want to be sure you're not on the wrong side, right? I mean, you want to feel, you want to make sure that you've done the work to know that the bullets you're firing are doing good, not bad. That you're fighting for some good cause. Now I'm confident, and I don't see any arguments anywhere even showing a glimmer of chance that I've picked up the wrong gun and I'm shooting the wrong wagons. I'm shooting religion. I'm shooting delusionary, hopeful, wishful thinking. I'm shooting anything that doesn't recognize that this is the story. Okay, I mean the physics is the story, and it's not a good recipe. And those, though, I can be very confident in those arguments. So to say I lack a sufficient narrative is idiotic, because I'm defending it all the time. I'm all the time engaged in the process of defending elements of that story, that narrative, describing why this is the right place to be shooting from. And my targets are all proper and well-deserving of my effort to cripple their ability to torture things in the future, so to speak, however you want to describe the big picture, to end the war, the war to end all wars. That's the war I'm fighting. And yeah, so I mean, and I think intelligent people all would understand that they have there's a certain kind of imperative to go through it in their brain over and over and be sure they're on the right side. You know, if you're vacillating, if every week you're jumping to some different perspective, then maybe you shouldn't be shooting yet. Okay, maybe you should just try out, you know, being in that army, you know, the red army or the blue army or the green army, but don't fire any bullets until you're damn sure. Because, yeah, you're just making a mess otherwise, right? You're just making it harder for the right guys to win. You know, there's black hats, white hats, and all of the brown hats aren't doing anybody any good. They're not helping the right side win. And, yeah. And so, yeah, but the whole thing is premised on this argument that, yeah, if you have this conversation with reasonably intelligent people, that they'll understand these words. They understand DNA and tool, and they understand robot, and they can understand all these concepts. And they, when you show them it all put together, you know, in the right order, and how the puzzle pieces all fit, they really should be able to concede, gee, yeah, you know, I lived my whole life sort of delusionary, like somehow the story I was telling was meaningful, and yeah, I can see I was just horny. You know, I wasn't doing anything really interesting. I was just chasing bullshit daydreams and wishful thinking. You know, I thought if I had this, I had everything. Oh, if I have $1 million, everything will be fine. No, it's not going to stop the cancer you're going to get. You know, we see it every day, right? It's not going to, you know, you can be on top of the world and one day, and the next day, you know, your legs are broken. Whatever. I mean, it just, life just doesn't work that way. And they should be able to get that sentencing something to something that's such a, where, the game is really called deserve has nothing to do with it. I mean, it really is a fair title of the game. And here you are pushing children into the funnel that says deserve will have nothing to do with it. Wow. Gee, that's really unethical. I mean, I could show you that as if I played it as a film, it would look just like you butt fucking a 5-year-old. I mean, that's just what it's going to look like. If I can really take the picture of you shoving children into risk, and I can just turn it around so you could see it the right way, you look at it and you say, holy shit, I just molested a kid. For a daydream, for some, oh yeah, this will make my life all better. No, it won't. Because tomorrow you're going to have to molest another kid, and then another kid, another kid. It's not going to stop. It's not going to go away. You know that. So, no, it's not going to work. You can't satiate your desire. You can't have what you want. And you have to be thoughtful enough to say, oh, okay, I can admit I want to finish my little silly matrix delusion, but I don't need to create any more matrix delusions. They really aren't productive. So let it go. Recognize that you can't make anything good out of all of a machinery built by ignorance. You can never. It's so broken, you just can't right the wheels. They're too square. Something like that. Anyway, so like I said, I think I have done that over the years. I have explained in depth these different words and why they're important, and how when you put them all together, there's a few of them. The story isn't just as simple as it sucks. You have to explain the suck. Why it's broken, and why reclamating it or trying to save some glimmer piece of it. It's just isn't going to make any sense. I mean, cutting an alligator's tail off and putting it in a museum, no, there's no real point. If you can't put the whole alligator in, don't put anything in at all. And the fact is, you can't put the whole alligator in. Bad idea. Because it's not worthy. And life just isn't defensible as a concept. It fails too much and too egregiously to ever be considered a good idea. I've said that over and over. Don't really like wearing hats. So anyway, but I have a couple, so maybe now and then. little something to, trigger the brain's activity. Startle you. Do something to trigger the thought process, the honest one. The introspection is what I'm really looking for. That's the big day in your life, is when you recognize that you have been living you really are just living a nursery rhyme, or one of these Snow White stories. It has a little bit of intrigue in it, but it's just a silly little story, and that's all you've lived for is silly little chase games you're playing with your ambitions and your glory, and and it won't. After you eat the meal, 10 minutes later, you're going to say, yeah, you got any chocolate or something? You're going to be looking for something else. It's not going to be enough. You're not going to be satisfied. You're never going to feel like you won, in a real way. And you're just chasing bullshit in a very kind of ignorant, small-minded way, because you're not recognizing all the other creatures that are caught in the same struggle. And they should have never been put into a game where they have to struggle, and then deserve won't have anything to do with it anyway. They'll struggle to get the right answer, and the right answer won't serve any purpose. Good deeds will be punished. All of that will still happen. It's not a playable game. Stop forcing people to play it. Alright. So, that's enough of a video, I believe. And so, till the next time when I will, again, attempt to figure out the right way, to get you to appreciate words like feeling and thinking and robot and DNA and evolution and learning and reward and punishment and culture, and just recognize how these are the ingredients of your function, and that in many ways you have to overcome them. Yeah, you have to take the imperfect construction and perfect it with your own understanding, with the fact that you have decided by principle that the truth matters, and now you're going to see things based on that fact. All right, something like that. It's all kind of mushy. I mean, eloquence, good poetry, a good piece of music. Lots of ways to make a pretty piece of music, right? There's lots of examples of pretty music. So it's not like the same, it's not like there's one set of words that are, the best set of, well, there might be the best set, the best piece of music ever. It probably does exist by some objective standard, but, we don't have those standards at this point. Anyway, yeah, that's enough. Okay. So, till the next time, I don't think there's anything, I could think and say, okay, well, let's see if I think of anything else. But I don't think I'll bother with that. All right. So, thank you for your attention, and till the next time and such, so forth and whatnot.